I don't know if you've met Caitlin.
Caitlin,
Hi.
hello. Nice to meet you.
You too.
She's on the Half the Answer podcast with Trent R. Nelson, where
Yes.
they talk about, lots of things. They go political. We don't go political so much, but, well, actually,
happens.
that's not true, is it? That's not true.
What's the thing? Everything's political, right, Daniel?
Everything is political, I was going to say.
It's just whether or not we're willing to acknowledge that it is or not. Hello and welcome to Because Language, a show about linguistics, the science of language. My name's Daniel Midgley. Let's meet the team. First up, my old pal, Ben Ainsley.
Arr. It felt like you were introducing me as like a former scallywag pirate acquaintance.
You mean because of the word mate?
I think you said me old pal.
Oh, me old pal. Arr. Ben, what's something about generative AI that keeps you up at night, makes you quake in your booty boots?
I think for me, it's the fact that there is space for lots and lots of people to say, yeah, but this is just like calculators. And this is really not at all like calculators. And that cover, that like camouflage netting, or like conceptually that sits over it, I worry is really Trojan horsing some stuff that we're going to figure out is bad later. And people will later be like, it wasn't like calculators.
That's a good answer. And me old pal, Hedvig Hurgard. Hedvig, same question. What's something that makes you unsettled, wakes you up screaming?
I think it's really good to have friends who are willing to be direct and tell you when you're wrong or doing something bad. And I think some people think that to be a good friend is to be always affirming and supportive. And these AI sycophantic agents are that. And I heard Sam Altman has said something like, some people have never been told they had a good idea their entire lives. And like, how sad is that? And I'm like, well, maybe some people don't have good ideas. Or like, I'm not sure saying that all of their ideas are good is helpful. So I think you can get stuck in this trap of a lot of positive
Everybody needs
affirmation.
affirmation, but sometimes you're just a wanker.
Well, it's also like, I don't understand either when people are happy with that affirmation because, and I know my mom listens to this and I love my mom, but when my mom says I'm very smart, I'm like, you're my mom.
Mom,
this
course you think
is
I'm very
not a reliable
smart.
source.
Like, this is not a reliable source.
Okay, you know what? A good positive signal from your mom might not be a good indicator, but a negative signal from your mom definitely is. So you got to keep that going.
Yes, that's true.
A while ago, I might have said hostile governments unloading tons of cheap and easy-to-make disinformation onto the dumbest voters in our society. But after working on this episode, I have even more things to worry about. But I'm also more hopeful and calmer and realistic about the risks of generative AI, and that's all thanks to a chat that I had with Oxford professor Christopher Summerfield. He's the author of These Strange New Minds, How AI Learned to Talk and What It Means. I had a chat with him, and in that chat, I was ably assisted by our pal and co-host, Dr. Caitlin Green.
Hey!
So that's coming up. It was really fun.
Honorary co-host.
Lovely. She sounds like a very good person to pull in for that. Yeah.
She had lots of good insights. She has them on her podcast, Half the Answer, with Trent R. Nelson. And that's one of my weekly stopping points, I've got to say. Just wanted to say a big thanks to all of our patrons. You know, you folks make sure that normal episodes are free and available for everybody. And thank you for making the decision to support the show. Who's going to do a welcome to our newest patrons?
I think Hedvig should.
We want to give a special welcome to our newest followers on Patreon. And we have one new supporter called Unleashy, which I'm interested in that name, who has jumped from the free tier to a supporter tier. And we have new people at the friend level, Sullivan and Lucy. Ooh, Lucy, I wonder who that is. And our newest free patrons are Ashley T, Paul O, Rachel O, Joe and Kevin Hawk. So that's two people in one. And Sherry L. Thank you so much.
Welcome, all and one.
Let's get to the news.
Yeah.
There's one from the AP Style Guide. You know, the Associated Press, a lot of journalists use the AP Style Guide as a way to decide how they want to write stuff. It's got some good choices, and one came out recently on Blue Sky. The AP Style Book account said this. The new AP Style Book 58th edition includes an entry for couple of things, right? Which clarifies that it always means do. Do we have any feelings on this?
I have feelings.
Spicy choice.
I want to hear Ben's feelings first.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Well, I think one of the things that is tricky with couple is that it's one of those words with many senses. In like it's really, really context dependent. You know, couple can mean to have sex, couple can mean to join two things together, couple can mean lots and lots of stuff. Now, I get that it's all tied to a concept of a pair or something like that. But, you know, when there's that much sensiness sort of floating around, I kind of go, ooh, trying to nail it to the wall is a bold choice.
That's how I feel. Okay, Hedvig, do you agree?
I feel like the origin is definitely couple as in pairs and two things, but I feel like it has stretched. So like a couple of goofs could be 2, 3, 4. And I think what's happening is we're seeing something that I think happens in a fair amount of other languages, which is something that's developing into what's called a porkle, which means a few. So like more than 2, but fewer than whatever is considered a large amount of the thing. So probably like 10 is like too many to be couple. But you get in a lot of languages, you get this shift between words that mean 2, 3, 4 start like blending into each other because it's like, yeah, it's like a few. Which now makes me want to know the etymology of few.
We could do
but
that.
I definitely feel like if you definitely want to mean 2, you should use pair. A pair of something walk down the street, or like there was a pair of
that's
something.
A good point, actually. It's like we have this other word that does exclusively mean 2 and isn't the word 2.
Yeah.
True.
Nobody uses that for like 5 things. A pair is always a pair.
100% of the time.
Yeah.
Like no confusion whatsoever.
Yeah, whereas couple does have this confusion, yeah.
I'm just looking at the etymology of few, and it comes from Proto-Germanic fawaz, which ties back to a Proto-Indo-European root paw, P-A-U, which, does that sound like a word that Hedvig just said? Porkle?
Porkle, yeah.
Yes,
But does
indeed.
this still keep meaning like few all the time, or has it ever meant 2?
Doesn't seem to have meant 2 at any point. Although I have to say, I defer to XKCD. A few, anywhere from 2 to 5. A handful, anywhere from 2 to 5. Several, anywhere from 2 to 5. A couple, 2.
Oh, okay.
But sometimes up to 5.
Yeah, exactly.
Randall Munro, you're just the best.
I've been enjoying lately reading about like silly polycule stuff. And I was thinking about like as a couple, as in like I'm married to my husband, we are a couple. And if you were a throuple, I know that exists. But I'm wondering if people in the polycule world sometimes call a throuple a couple.
Interesting.
Oh, okay. True.
They're like,
I guess I would imagine not, right? Because you would need distinctive language. And then the next question is quadruple, centuple, like septuple. How many? Where do we go?
Hey, you're forgetting the obvious sextuple for a polycule.
Sextuple, yeah.
But if they did use couple for more than 2, then it would just be following the same process. I still think that couple means 2, but sometimes it's just for very high values of 2. Very simple.
Very high values of 2?
Yes, mathematically, it's indisputable.
I think he's saying the Randall Munro thing in a different way. He's like, it's 2, except sometimes it's more than 2.
Sometimes it's just a very big 2. Yeah. The OED has imprecise definitions going back to the 1500s. For example, in 1586, we see someone writing, though they 3 do cost me a couple of £100 by year. But I don't go to dictionaries. I'm so cool. I just go to a concordance and I work out the definition of words from there. So I went to the Corpus of Contemporary American English, COCA, and just looked at the examples, just scanned them to see what they were referring to. And I found that if it's a phrase like an older couple or married couple, then it is too. Fair enough. But if it's a phrase like a couple of, the way I'm reading those examples, it's almost always imprecise by my reading.
It's the my very favorite thing to ever come from where Hedvig live. It's buckaroo numbering.
Yeah, it is. You know, if the AP wants to do that for their own style guide, that's totally cool. I think they should consider common usage, but it's their style guide. They get to enforce what they want.
Yeah,
this one was suggested by James on our Discord. Let's talk about vocal fry. What is it?
So I just got a sort of commented video about this really recently in my feed. So vocal fry is when you speak, you sort of vibrate your vocal folds in such a way that you get this like a little bit of like a creaky effect. So it's associated with like valley girls speak, supposedly. So like the way that like certain young women in California speak. However, it actually happens all the time, also in men, also in older women, also in children, in all kinds of languages, all kinds of settings. But it's been associated not only with like the creak, but also with like certain intonation patterns, I think. So like the prime example would probably be the Kardashians used a lot of vocal fry. And what tends to happen when young women do something is that it becomes trash, unclassy, dumb, etc. So people like to make fun of this talking style, but it actually happens a lot in the population broadly.
Yeah, and they also try to be helpful by saying, girls, don't sound unprofessional. Ditch the vocal fry and use your strong woman's voice. But it's actually just a way of criticizing women once again on how they speak.
I always, I don't know if I'm right in this, but I always associated it with, just because, you know, I can only make sense of the world through pop culture references. I associated it most heavily with the coming out of the show Girls in the 2000s and that tranche of millennial woman, sort of like the privileged, whiter, wealthier, younger, but like not young, not children, like 20-somethings, and having that real like, no, okay, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's, you know, each one of us have exhibited vocal fry in the last minute and a half. It's
probably,
and not just as an example, like as in as a normal part of our speech.
Yeah,
I actually find it quite, because I think that this negative attitude to vocal fry is so well spread that I think that women who do it now, I'm almost like impressed by it. Like when they do it in the Kim Kardashian Paris Hilton way, I'm like, well, you know that people hate this and you're still doing it. That to me is like quite ballsy. That's like quite like, I don't know.
Vocal fry in your
like,
face.
I don't care. Yeah. I should do more vocal
Tattoos
fry.
are so mainstream, man. You should get vocal fry going.
Yeah.
Well, there's been some new work by Jean Brown, a graduate student at McGill University. She just gave a talk recently at the annual meeting of the Acoustical Society of America in Philadelphia. What she did was she analyzed online recordings of speakers of Canadian English, checking out the fry, did a little bit of number action, and found that there were two people who mostly did the fry, and it wasn't young women. It was, number one, men and older speakers. Those are the two groups that did the most fry. It wasn't young women at all. And then she did an experiment where she made her own creaky voice recordings, her own fry, but she pitched some of the recordings down so that the voices were deeper. And then got subjects to rate how much vocal fry there was. Now, these people had been trained. They did a thing where they learned to recognize vocal fry. They were told what it was and listened to examples and went through a training thing. And then they listened to her recordings. And while listening, they saw maybe a photo of a man, maybe a photo of a woman, and listened to these pitched up or pitched down examples of vocal fry. And Brown found something interesting. People didn't identify the fry just because they saw a certain photo of a man or a woman. It didn't seem to correlate with gender at all, but it did correlate with low pitch. So, vocal fry is complex. Perception of vocal fry is complex. Brown says the conflict between our findings and everyday perception, where women are routinely flagged as creakier, suggests the bias is real, but socially constructed rather than grounded in how women actually sound. Thanks to James for that story. And by the way, somewhat relatedly, I found this note on the other thing that women are criticized for, and that's uptalk. You know, uptalk? That thing you do?
Do you
At the end of a
know
sentence?
about the end of the thing that's happening tomorrow?
Well, Matt Gordon on Twitter spotted an example from 1890.
Wow.
This is from a book called Dialect Notes, and we'll have a link up in the show notes for this episode. A man named Sylvester Primer writes, Charleston, South Carolina has one peculiarity which I have not noticed elsewhere, namely, they constantly end the sentences with the rising inflection so that they appear to be asking questions at first. I am told that this peculiarity also exists in Devonshire, England. So, nice catch from 1890, hey?
Fascinating, because I thought for sure there's no way we would know, right? Like, because there's no audio recordings or anything.
Nope, but he described it, so there you go. I thought that was cool.
Very cool. What's next on the docket, Daniel?
Let's finish up with one suggested by James on our Discord. This one's about Singlish. Love Singlish. Love hearing it.
Singapore English, yes.
Well, about 10 years ago, we did a show on Singlish, and we noticed a certain attitude. There were lots of people in Singapore who used Singlish, which borrows a lot of elements from Hokkien and Cantonese and the other languages around. They used it, but they weren't proud of it, and they felt like they shouldn't do it in certain settings like school or work. Well, this article says more Singapore residents identifying with English or Singlish as mother tongue affinity fails. This is reported by Channel News Asia. Here's the grab from the article. Nearly half of the Singaporeans they surveyed, 47.6%, identified most with English or Singlish, up from 33.8% in 2013. Sounds pretty good, right?
That's a pretty big jump in not all that long a time. I'm surprised by that bigger shift.
Well, when we look at the crosstabs, we get a bit of a different story.
Okay.
The headline said that they identify with Singlish or English.
Right.
Which one? What's happening is that Singlish is holding steady at 8.3%. If anything, it's down a touch from 8.4% in 2018. This gain is mostly due to the rise of English from 33% in 2018 up to 39% in this latest survey.
Do we suspect possibly that some Singaporeans are saying English when in fact what they do is Singlish? Like, is this one of these things of like, yeah, I speak it, like I'm all about the English, but then were you to monitor these people, you would find quite a lot more Singlish than is being self-reported.
Well, that might be true in this survey, but it might also have been true in the other surveys they did in previous years.
Good point.
So the main thing is the direction.
It sounds like it's a news story about how this Asian country is using more Singlish or English, like, and less Hokkien and Malaysian and stuff like that, right? That's the interesting news story here to this newspaper.
That's correct. Right? This really is coming at the expense of heritage languages. Mother's heritage language down from 6.9% to 6.2%. Father's heritage language down from 21.5% of people saying they identified with it, from 21.5% down to 16.1%. So there is some movement, but English is mostly the one that's up, and it's coming at the expense of heritage languages. But Singlish, holding steady, maybe no movement is good movement.
I think just as a quick note as well for any of our listeners who might not necessarily have much at all to do with Singapore, and I'm not claiming to be a Singaporean expert by any stretch of the imagination, but one of the aspects to this story that is interesting, I think, is the fact that officially and governmentally, the government is going to be happy with this news. The government has been very, very clear for many decades that English is the language that they want Singaporeans to speak. It is what has been pushed. It's what gets taught in schools. So this rise isn't sort of, it's not equitable, I think, to like let's say an Australian example where we see the loss of heritage languages, because this is a different context. I'm not saying better or worse or anything like that, but just I think it's important to remember that Singapore in the I'm gonna take a stab and say like the 50s or the 60s took a pretty big swing with going, we speak English, because that I'm gonna wager that the typical level of English speaking and knowledge at that time was not big. So they sort of made a really strategic and aspirational choice going, we believe that English is going to be the language of commerce and the language of education and all this sort of stuff. P.S. like good guess. Like you went off.
And a lot of Asian countries did this. Vietnam did the exact same thing, banked hard on English.
But we haven't, like, Singapore's English language knowledge and Vietnam's English language knowledge are wildly different, right?
They're different.
So yeah, I think it's just interesting to note that the Singaporean government, I think, would be kind of going, like, patting themselves on the back and being like, at last, the thing that we've wanted to achieve is like really starting to like bed in, and maybe they're looking to see if like this next generation of speakers will like almost conclude that like settling in of English as the language, and then there could be a whole bunch of heritage languages floating around, but like everyone speaks English.
Makes me a bit sad. I like heritage languages. I like seeing them around.
That's true.
One person can have more than one language in their brain.
It's true.
That's definitely true. And a lot of people, I think, in this survey answered, like, a lot of people were multilingual, right? And not to be like, I don't want this to get the wrong way, but the largest languages that people reported, right, was Mandarin, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. And they are fairly large languages. I don't know how to say this in a way that's like...
I think what she's trying to say politely, Daniel, is like, no one gives a fuck about them being heritage languages.
No,
like,
I'm not saying that. I just... Maybe... comparison is the death of all joy. But like, if like... I don't know. Indigenous Australian languages exist only in Australia.
It's like, if I may, Daniel, I think Hedvig is saying, it's a bit like someone was saying, oh no, someone's like big collection of like vintage Beatles memorabilia is like no longer going to be on display. I think there's enough other Beatles stuff out there. We'll be okay.
Okay. I hope so.
At the same time, I do... Yeah. I'm just setting myself up for getting lots of angry letters. Yeah.
Okay. You can send that hate mail to Hedvig at fuhaters.com.au.
You do not give out my email address.
Let's go on to Related or Not. Our theme comes from your man, Ste.
Yes.
Related or not. Related or not. Related or not.
One more.
Related or not. Related or not.
Love it.
Very nice.
Hedvig, marry that
Can
man.
you hear the Elton?
Yeah.
He
There
loves
was a
Elton
little bit of
John.
there, wasn't there? Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, sorry to Hugh Stickley. I pronounced your name wrong on our last episode, but you shall henceforth be Hugh.
Cool.
This instance of Related or Not is the Bonkers Mélange edition, because all of our friends and contributors have given us the most bonkers mélange of words we're ever going to see in this game.
Excellent. Oh, this is my speed. I love bonkers.
Mélanges?
Okay.
Yeah. It's a French word, so, like, pass.
Okay. What, bonkers? Bonkers. This one is from Liz via email, hello@becauselanguage.com. Liz says, hi team, here's an idea for Related or Not. Get ready.
Mm-hmm.
Population, discombobulated, and bobbin.
Wow.
Population, discombobulated, and bobbin are some, all, or none related. What do you think?
I've got thoughts. Straight away.
Hit us.
Okay, so I've got visual aids I can offer. I'm reaching behind onto the very chair on which I sit, and I am pulling off a toile that I am in the process of making. I'm going to hold it up so the guys can see. This.
Oh, wow.
These two know, but for the sake of the listeners who might not, I've been trying to get into sewing and like clothes, garment making, and a toile, which is just, I believe, the French word for cloth or fabric, is like a test garment that you make out of shit fabric that you don't mind losing, so that when you make a whole bunch of mistakes, it doesn't matter. Anyway, because I have been learning how to sew, I have been interacting with bobbins and other various bits and pieces. So for the people who don't know, the bobbin is the part of a sewing machine that loads the thread underneath the garment. So if you weren't aware of this, sewing machines actually sew thread from two different directions simultaneously. One comes from above, which is the big needle that goes chung, 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 chung. But underneath there is a much smaller spindle of thread that weaves a secondary thread, and that is how a sewing machine works. And that secondary spool is called a bobbin. And they're a real fucking pain in the ass when they run out and you don't realize, and then you end up doing a whole bunch of sewing and you realize it was for nothing. There was no sewing going on because the bobbin wasn't there, and the bottom thread didn't go through, and then you take it off the machine and the whole thing splits apart at the seam. Anyway, so because of this, I believe that bobbin and discombobulated are absolutely related. I believe that the rage that I just expressed to you is somehow related to this idea of discombobulation, because when the bobbin fucks up or goes haywire, bad shit happens. And I'm assuming that that word discombobulated comes from the age of industrialization, where it wasn't just like a person on a single machine, but these like huge factory-sized reams. So if a bobbin fucked up, it was like a huge industrial issue.
I'm calling that a valid crash out.
I don't think it's related to population, though. I think bobbin and discombobulated related. I think population is different.
I think we said this to our listeners before, but I can really recommend watching videos of like a pedagogical illustration of how sewing machine works. It's very, very interesting. And for extra bonus, I can also recommend watching history of sewing machines, because there were alternative ways of doing it that are also interesting to look at. Sewing machines are a very, very, very sophisticated piece of machinery that I could never invent on my own. Never in my life.
Yep.
I think
Definitely.
that the thing here is the bob and pop, right? So we have to ask ourselves a couple of questions. So population comes from populus, meaning people in Latin. So then this discombobulated, now I can't say it, discombobulated have anything to do with a person or people doing anything? And then does bobbin have anything to do with a person? And I kind of feel like I can weave a beautiful fabric where it's like all little goblin guys that are turning you upside down and rolling around and sitting inside of your machine and doing little things. I'm going to say all related.
Okay,
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Okay. Obviously, I identified the bob as a kind of vector of relatedness. So I know that bob means something short. So short hair is bobbed. A tail of an animal that you cut off is a bobbed tail. So I think bobbin might be a small spool, I guess, because it is the smaller of the two. Mm-hmm. But I think that discombobulated is just one of those funny words that people liked inventing in the 1800s, like bamboozle or bloviate.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's related. And then population, as Hedvig said, is from Latin populus, people, and I just don't see any connection there. So I'm saying none related.
We've got a proper old school split. This is fun.
Okay. I looked it up. The answer is they ain't none of them related.
Oh, that's so disappointing.
Boo.
I know, me being right.
I don't like Liz. It was Liz, right?
It was Liz, yes. We like Liz. We like Liz a lot. Population was, as we said, bobbin, origin unknown, rather unsatisfying. Etym Online, the online etymology dictionary, says perhaps from Latin balbus, see babble, for the stuttering, stammering noise it made, but not sure.
Okay.
Discombobulate was just one of those funny little words people liked making.
Essentially a troll word, like we're just trolling and making up shit.
Although, OED says that bob might be reused from like thingamabob, which is the thing that was going around. Mm-hmm. But it seems like none of them related. Thanks a lot, Liz, for making me right.
Okay, next.
One from Corinne, again via email, hello@becauselanguage.com. Corinne says, here are some etymologies I found myself looking up for fun. Goggle, as in to do that with your eyes, to be surprised with your eyes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Goo-goo, as in to make goo-goo eyes at someone when you're feeling romantic.
Or like going
eyes.
Goo-goo or whatever.
Yes, or gaga. We'll ignore that one for now. And then agog, when you're agog and you go, Gah?
Okay.
They seem to describe the same kinds of actions. They have some kind of g thing going on. So we got goggle, goo-goo, and agog. Now, let's remember, we're not talking about imitative words which are not related at all. Their similarity is accidental by virtue of onomatopoeia. Ptui, ptui. We want to know if they're genetically related, not coincidentally same sounding. But if a word got coined from onomatopoeia and then another word copied it, that would be a relation.
That's what I was thinking as well. Okay, cool.
Okay.
I went first last time. I had my crash out, so I'm going to give it to someone else.
Is our official ruling that gla words are related or not? Glimmer, glisten, glitter. What's our official ruling?
Gleam. We're saying that those are sound symbolism, and they don't.
Because glitter makes the glow sound?
Their relation is coincidental.
What? I think Hedvig and I are both stutteringly angry at this claim. We are saying that a principle to do with light is a imitative sound word.
Glisten, glitter,
it can be
glinting,
imitating
gleaming.
without being... Things can be imitated without being sound imitated. But I don't know what about light makes gla happen. Is what I'm saying.
What's happening is not that we're trying to imitate the sound of light. What we're doing is that over time, somehow, the gl combination of sounds started to mean, for English speakers, a kind of glowing light sort of thing.
Okay. We have strayed.
So why are those not related?
But wait, would that be analogy? Would that be a cross instead of genetic?
Only us three
what if one of them did
could
it
be in the middle of a related or
after?
not, and then assign ourselves a completely separate related or not
No.
we have made up on the
Not
spot.
separate. Then I am trying, like a lawyer, to establish if that is the case, then I'm going to make different decisions for goo-goo, agog.
Sure. We want to avoid like fruit of the poisonous tree kind of situation.
Okay, so if it turns out that these words, Google, goo-goo, and agog, if they just happen to be that way because people thought that g is the sound that you make when you look at something surprised, then that would be not related.
Okay. I have an idea, but I went first last time, so I want someone else to, please.
I can go. I say none related.
Bold
Goggles
again.
are for your eyes, or you roll your eyes about. You go goo-goo with your eyes. Isn't that what a baby says? And you do that when you're agog as well. But I think this is just plain old sound symbolism. We somehow arrived at this idea that g, in a kind of imitative fashion, is what we do when we do things with our eyes.
I think a goggle and agog are related, and I think there's some sort of root word, like some sort of Norse or Germanic root word to do with eyes that, like, I just don't know. I think goo-goo is a weird one. It's also pretty niche. Like, I really don't and haven't heard it used very much to describe the way people look. And I suspect that the way we get goo-goo is because we have this, like, stereotypical like baby noise goo-goo gaga, like in the same way that I would do a cock-a-doodle-doo or a bar or a woof-woof kind of thing. Our like imitative, typical in English baby noise is goo-goo gaga. And
They do that.
what happened was we associated like goo-goo eyes or gaga eyes or whatever with the fact that like newborns are just weird, scary creatures. So we've associated the noise, the woof-woof, as it were, with that look. Whereas goggle, I mean, because goggle surely just comes from goggle, right? Like the thing you put over your fucking eyes. Surely. Like that seems like a pretty uncontroversial take. So I think goggle and agog related. That's me.
Okay. Hedvig.
I think this is all nonsense. I think all the glow words are related, and I think that all of these are related. I also barely know most of these words. I basically never encounter them.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, let's take a look at the answer. So goggle is of uncertain origin, so that's no help at all. Goo-goo. Now this one, I got conflicting answers for this one. Edom Online says perhaps connected with goggle. So if you're listening to Mr. Douglas Harper, he's on your side. But OED says unlikely on both formal and semantic grounds. So they pointed out that some people have tried to tie goo-goo back to goggle, but unlikely, says OED. On
Daniel,
formal and semantic grounds, yes.
point Point of information, sir.
Yes?
I have found extensive information on the etymology of goggle.
Have you? What have you found?
Are you sure it's not Google?
No, I'm very sure it's not Google.
Okay, hit me with it.
The word goggle derives from the Middle English root goglen, meaning to roll the eyes about or to squint, first emerging in the late 14th century. The term has uncertain ultimate origins, but is generally thought to be expressive or imitative of someone staring with wide rolling eyes.
Imitative, thank you very much. That's what I wanted to hear.
Mhm.
Okay. By the way, OED thinks that goo-goo is connected to gooey, but it's inconclusive,
Okay.
so I can't connect that. Agog. This
Mhm.
one is from Old French angog, probably,
Damn it.
in jest or good humor, joyfulness. It made me think of gig, the dance, but it goes on. From gog, fun, which is of unknown origin.
And gosh.
Now, if Corinne has suggested a go-go, as in it's going to be cookies a go-go at my place or whiskey a go-go, then that one might have been related to gog because of that word fun, gog, the old French word. But for now, it looks like none of them related. This is once again imitative. We're unhappy, but that's the way it goes. Thanks, Corinne. All right. Ready for our third one?
Yep.
One from Ash, once again via email, hello@becauselanguage.com. Ash gets straight to it. Hi, all, related or not?
I love this. This is so good. Just bam.
Gets in and does it. Once, as in it only happened once. Ounce, as in the unit of measure. Pounce.
Yeah. I'm already. Yeah. I hate these. Yeah.
Yep. And lynx, Lynx, the animal. Once, ounce, pounce, and lynx. This is a bonkers collection.
Ounce, pounce, lynx.
Hedvig, I'm going with you first. What do you think?
Well, like an ounce of something is not a very big amount. Could it be something
True.
once?
Once is not big either.
How high can she go, folks?
I appreciate. Yeah, I like this set, but I find it really hard to know what to do with it because they're quite short and they're spelled funny. And once, ounce, pounds, lynx. Lynx seems like the one that is like the fun one that is related to one of them, and she wants to showcase that that is the case.
Or they.
Oh, she's metagaming, folks.
Or them. So which one is it? So it should be pounds because they do pounds. So yeah.
They do, don't they?
I'm doing really poorly in this game. I might get my linguistic card removed from this episode when my senior linguist friends listen to it. And I'm just going to have fun with this. So I'm going to say pounds and lynx are related and nothing else.
Pounds and lynx and nothing else. I had the opposite answer. I said once an ounce. Because once is one plus the good old adverbial genitive, same as twice and thrice. The S means this is an adverb. It's the reason we say toward, but also towards tells in what direction you're doing it. And it's the S in unawares. What's that S doing? Well, it tells how you're doing it in an unaware state. Whereas ounce, could that be related to one? I bet it is. So I'm saying once and ounce are the related ones, but not the others.
I'm going unrelated. I think ounce and pound. Oh, sorry. Yeah, ounce and once related. Ounce and pounce unrelated. Once and pounce unrelated. Lynx.
Lynx.
Let's have fun. I reckon lynx and pounce are somehow related because lynx do the pouncing. That's literally all I've got to go on is that a lynx is a deeply pouncy creature. So I reckon there's a relation there.
Okay. The answer is it's just once and ounce. I thought, could ounce be one? And it is. It comes from Latin uncia, 1/12th part. Ounce means 1/12th of a thing because it's 1/16th of a pound. Okay. It's 1/12th of a pound in troy, but 1/16th in avoirdupois. But it does come from Latin unus, one. So ounce and once are related. They're both from one. Let's go to lynx. Wikipedia has an interesting etymology for lynx on the snow leopard page. They say, but I don't believe it, the idea was that the animal was originally called an once, and in French, the once would be lance,
Oh, lance.
and then it went to lynx. But
Mm-hmm.
this etymology isn't reflected anywhere else. Skeet doesn't have it, Barnhart doesn't have it, OED doesn't have it. Other places just have it as Latin lynx, related to Greek lephsein, to see, and then back to Proto-Indo-European look, light or brightness, because they really can see very well in the dark. So that one I'm calling not related.
Boo.
Pounce is a fun one. The pounce was the name for the animal's claws. They were called pounces. Here's the lynx with his little pounces, because the pounces punch holes in things.
Oh.
And that is how pounce and punch are related. They are doublets, these words that come from the same word, just borrowed again at different times. So we borrowed punch from Old French ponchonner, to punch, and then we borrowed the word again from modern French, where it became pounce.
So just to be clear,
Mhm.
does that mean puncture is related to pounce?
Oh, I bet you're right. I bet it is. Check that.
We
Typing.
are our own worst enemies in this segment. Honestly, we are just like, we're
And-
shocking.
What about
I think it
punk?
is.
Ooh.
Punk is interesting because punk went through a lot of different things. According to Edym Online, it's an Algonquian word, punk, meaning dust, powder, or ashes. But there are other etymologies that have been put out there.
Okay.
But it looks like once announced are the winner. That means some of us did actually quite well on this round, on this Bonkers Mélange edition of Related or Not. Thanks, Ash, and everyone. And thanks once again to everyone who gives us suggestions and jingles for Related or Not. Thanks, Ste. If you want to give us a jingle or a suggestion, why don't you hit us up in all the regular ways, hello@becauselanguage.com or on SpeakPipe. We're talking with Dr. Christopher Summerfield, Professor of Cognitive Neuroscience at the University of Oxford. He's the author of These Strange New Minds, How AI Learned to Talk and What It Means. Chris, thanks so much for coming and chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
My first question, do you like AI?
I do. I like AI a lot. So it's a great question because, it's interesting that people have such varied takes. But the one thing that I find is that there is almost no correlation between how much people like AI in print and how much they like AI in their everyday lives. Like, I meet all of these people whose entire job is like to write articles about how awful AI is and how it's going to like end the world or like, destroy our democracy or take all our jobs. And then like you catch them doing an analysis and they're like, oh, of course, I'm just using Claude to do my analysis. Yeah, no correlation whatsoever.
No. Caitlin Green, I'm going to ask you, do you like AI?
In my personal life, I actually really don't find myself using it, but I'm not doing the kind of, analysis that I would want Claude for. So I personally think that like the things that I don't like about AI are things that I don't like about just like capitalism or like
Or people, right?
or people like I think that it's basically a tool. So I'd say I'm like neutral on AI.
The reason I asked this question is because I was about to give a lecture and a student in my Linguistics 1001 class said, "Sir, do you like AI?" And it was a level of analysis that I just hadn't really thought of.
It's like,
I was completely...
do you like
I
the
was
sky?
unprepared for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not yet sufficiently ubiquitous that it's a nonsense question, right? It is like we do have a choice still at the moment. Yeah, I do think attitudes, it's very interesting how people's attitudes are sort of so divorced from kind of like their practice. I also think that we just have some very weird takes on AI, right? Like, move in circles where people talk a lot about like kind of for example, the idea that AI might systematically kind of like de-skill us or cause our reasoning to fade or, kind of like completely destroy our information ecosystem. And like these are ideas which are taken very seriously. But like if you just take a step back and say, we've built a technology that literally knows everything and is very good at explaining it. Like the natural consequence of that technology would not be suddenly everyone doesn't know anything. It would be like literally the opposite. But like somehow our discourse is like, AI is going to be pretty terrible and like, make us all stupid. I don't think it is going to.
So we have teachers, right, saying, okay, I'm getting these submissions from students and I'm seeing them like use AI in a way that doesn't help them build the skills, right? Like they're in a way that like and I know and the school policy already kind of covers is cheating. And so in that way, like, I think that's one of the concerns that I personally have, that people generally have, that like it's different from using it to, let's say, run your analysis in the way that you would have used like a software suite before. Right. Where like, listen, I wasn't running all those regressions myself. Okay, I was putting them in the thing. It wasn't AI, but it was doing it. I knew what to ask it to do, but I wasn't doing it myself because I had huge amounts of numbers to deal with. There are kind of like, it's a tool, right? There are ways to use it in a way that augments your ability to reason, and there are ways to use it in a way that circumvents your reason.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, my suspicion is that actually what the net consequence will be neither kind of like gain nor loss. It'll be like actually kind of like potentially widening inequality, right? Educational inequality. Like this is what we see with so many other things, right? Particularly today is like there will be students who will know exactly how to use it, and this is already what we see from qualitative analysis of like interactions with students. The smart kids are using it to like set themselves tests and like deepen their knowledge and like, find additional citations and like know what to read. And then there's a bunch of kids who just like, didn't do their homework on time and just got ChatGPT to do it, right?
Yeah.
And that feels like that it feels like the tools will widen that divide.
Okay. Let's play lightning round. I'm going to give you a statement and you tell me if you agree or disagree. True or false? Large language models are just spicy autocorrect.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, technically, so this is always obviously a trick question. Like, I mean, of course it is technically true. Spicy autocorrect is a bit silly, but it's technically true, of course, that they're autoregressive models that minimize their perplexity over tokens, right? Like that's definitely true. But I mean, the interpretation of that statement is normally taken to be, and thus they can't engage in various forms of cognition and computation that we have traditionally thought involve like, sort of operations over discrete symbols and so on. So yeah, no, I don't believe that.
Okay.
Sorry, that was
Your
one.
gotcha journalism, Daniel. Oh my goodness.
The reason I throw that out there is because it is a thing that, and I've said this as well, and we've said it on the show, and something we hear all the time. Okay, so not just spicy. It's reductive to say that's all they're doing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, football's also just 11 people kicking around a pigskin, right? But like,
That was not meant to be a gotcha question, by the way.
I know.
Are you an AI vegan, Caitlin?
I think I'm just out of touch. Like I'm not in the world. I don't.
Okay.
I only talk to small children now, so I just don't use it because it's not in my life.
Yes. They're predicting next tokens as well.
Yeah, my 6-year-old is actually just a spicy
autocorrect.
Yeah.
Spicy autocorrect. Okay, next one, true or false? They're simply regurgitating data from their training corpus.
Well, this is demonstrably false, right? It's just not true, right? I mean, it's clear that the models can generalize, and they can generalize like in ways which are so the naive transformer, right? So like literally the computation that just goes on the activations allows for limited forms of interpolation and extrapolation, I think. Self-attention, which is a form of associative memory, lends itself really, really well to composition. And so the models can engage in forms of composition which clearly allow them to do things that are definitely not in their training data. if they want to go far beyond the training data, just like us, they need to use externalization, right? So that's why if you give a complex calculation to a language model today, it doesn't solve it in its activations. It like writes some code, which is exactly the same thing that you or I would do.
Or hands it off to a calculator app or something like that.
Yeah, so tool use, either tool use of one sort or another. I mean, yeah.
Okay. I used to be able to tell lots of fun stories in my class about large language models doing silly things, like cooking meals with gasoline or failing to count the number of R's in the word strawberry. And something's happened in the last year. I've had to ditch all of those examples because they've gotten so good. I can't find them anymore. What's going on?
Yeah, my colleague Steve Pantadosi has this he says that like trying to prove errors in language models is like the Sisyphean task because like, just as soon as you you identify something they can't do, the next version of the model fixes it. And like, it's a fool's game now. Well, the models are getting better because they're getting bigger and because they're getting trained on more data, right? So it's not a secret. Yeah.
Which one is the more important, the size increasing or just humans pelting it with lots of reinforcement?
Well, I think that this is a very interesting question, actually, and we don't quite know the answer to this question. So clearly, advances at the frontier, like the type of really eye-popping advances that you see in kind of like the very latest models, including like Claude Mythos and like GPT 5.5, these are in large part due to something called reinforcement learning with verifiable rewards, which is an approach in which the model is essentially taught how to think using reinforcement. And this works extremely well in domains in which you know the right answer or which you can check the right answer. So the very interesting question, and this is a big question for the future of AI, is like how much of the world is actually like that? Like how much of knowledge that you need to know actually has this verifiable aspect to it? So if it was everything, then AI would like basically just be solved by having lots of compute. But it's probably not everything. In fact, my guess is that it's probably quite a small fraction of what you need, which is why the models are absolutely amazing at like cyber, for example, but like, still every day, we can't solve like basic admin problems yet. Because those problems involve like much more open-ended things that are much harder to verify, so we can't just train against them with RL. So in order to make models good at tasks that do not have verifiable rewards, you have to learn with supervision from people. So that is like a very, very, very expensive thing to do. And of course, there's a whole ecosystem of like data generating companies right now that their sole job is just to collect absolutely insane amounts of data from human experts, right?
The title of the book is These Strange New Minds. Are we talking about minds? Is there a mind behind there?
Well, I mean, it's a provocative title.
Okay.
I'd like to leave that question to the philosophers, really, because like philosophers like to define philosophers like to define mind in terms of like things like phenomenal consciousness and so on. And I don't make any claims about that in the book. If you're a cognitive scientist, then a mind is like, it's basically like a complex input-output processing device. Of course, you can get into debates. So like, does that mean my thermostat is a mind? And it's like, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Is that celebrity my friend? Right. It's like, it's like you can't look in there and see the universe. So I appreciate that answer, especially having just read Richard Dawkins' whole foray into becoming best friends with Claude, where I'm like, well,
it happens to so many people come up to me and or write to me and say that they've discovered that Claude is conscious or
it's easy to do. I think it's human nature to look for consciousness in other places, right? To like, you expect when you meet a person that they're conscious, and so why wouldn't you also sort of like do a couple of mental tricks on yourself to allow yourself the experience of engaging with a conscious mind when you have the chance,
Yeah,
and so
right.
he did. He decided that Claude was conscious, and then he made it into a girl, and then he gave it a boyfriend. So that's beautiful.
Lovely. Yeah. This is, another grand old man of science, Daniel Dennett, who sadly passed away last year, calls this the intentional stance, right? Like engagement with the minds of others is so important for our selective advantage that we do it with literally everything. We do it with our phone when it refuses to turn on. We do it with the weather. Like when the weather doesn't comply, like it's very cold here in Britain at the moment, even though it's May, it's like not supposed to be cold. I'm like so annoyed at the weather, like really so annoyed.
I can't even complain, right? I'm in Oregon. I am getting rained on, and I'm like, how can this be in the Pacific Northwest that in the springtime I'm getting rained on, and yet I still feel I'm being personally targeted.
Personally. It's personal. Exactly. So the intentional stance. And of course, there's this computers as social actors framework, which we've had for a couple of decades. And so we're particularly prone to this with computers. And of course, when the computers talk back and, sound reasonable and want to make friends with you, then it's going to be even more compelling.
And they like your novel. They said your novel was really good. Of course they're conscious.
I sometimes think of language output, because for all of human history, when there's language coming out of something, we say, "Oh, human," right? It's an exploit. Like if I saw a duck walking down the street and the duck said, "Hey, man," I'd be like, "Well, that duck's a person," or
Clearly.
it used to be a person, but it got turned into a duck by magic, or something. It's something happened. So I see a computer and I just impute intentionality and agency, and it usually works. I mean, imputing understanding is what makes interaction happen. Let me ask a question here on this. I set my students a final exam question once, and that is, it's often claimed that generative AI systems do not understand in the way that humans do. How do you know if a human has understood you?
Yeah, you don't, right? I mean, this is a sort of like, this is the mega failure, one of the mega failures of my field, right? Psychology. Like, we've been around for 100 years. You would have, the top of the list of things that we should kind of have researched or solved is like, what does it mean to understand something? But literally, not only have we not solved that problem, it's not even a research program within our field, right? There's almost not completely. There are some wonderful people who are working on this, but it's very niche and we don't have kind of consensus views. There is no definition, so we can't hold models to the same standard as people.
Well, do you think I understand you?
Yeah, sure. And to some extent, right? We also, I mean, we just don't have a mature science of this, right? It's also almost certainly the case that in most conversations, there's a lot of talking past, right? You can easily zone out and then you can kind of wing it a bit and or we can have a whole conversation where we think we understand each other, but actually we don't. And of course, this is also because mutual understanding is only one of the goals of language, right? In fact, it's possibly one of the less important goals of language, right? Much more important goal of language is to signal kind of affiliative or cooperative signals, basically to provide signals to make sure we don't beat each other up. That's very important.
I love not being beaten up.
It's good.
One of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah. But mutual understanding, I mean, because we don't have clear definitions, right? We have to rely on proxies, and those proxies might be, can you explain something clearly? Can you teach someone else that thing? Can you say it back to me? Those types of things. And, those are what we use in education, and the models pass all of those tests.
Yeah, I was thinking, what kind of answer would I want from a student who I gave that question to? And what I would hope they would say is, I will never know if you understand me, but I think you understand me because I say stuff, and then when you say things back, it's kind of what I expected. Like my brain was making predictions of what you were going to say, and then I kind of got what I expected. So I guess I will impute understanding until I start getting lots of words that I did not expect, in which case I think something must have gone wrong and you didn't understand. But models, they give me back text that is kind of what I expect. So maybe it doesn't matter if they really do understand as long as they can do something useful.
Yeah, I think it's not the most useful debate. Yeah.
Yeah, we've sort of just talked our way around the Chinese room, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me more, because we have never had a discussion of the Chinese room on the show.
Do you mind? I'm afraid I'll mess it up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, now this is a cue for me to mess it up, right? But it's basically like a thought experiment that is supposed to surface like something to do with phenomenal awareness as well, but also kind of like meaning and understanding, whereby, you have there's a room and there's someone who doesn't understand any Chinese, and they post kind of like notes into the room, and in that room there's a giant book that can do any kind of like, can translate from any language to any language. So of course it can so of course it can be used to translate the notes, and there's a person in that room who is like using this book in order to translate the note. And so the person in the room doesn't understand the note, but they use the book, it translates it, and it comes back out the other end. And the question is like, does the person in the room understand or it's supposed to illustrate that the person in the room obviously, kind of like can emit the correct answer without ever necessarily understanding. And yeah, I mean, I think I never like set a lot of store by these kind of like philosophical thought experiments, but that's probably because I'm not trained in the right way. But like, it seems to me that they've just sort of hidden the understanding in the book, right? They've just got this trick,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
the book sort of understands because it's a universal translator.
Yeah, the person doesn't understand, but the system understands.
The system
message got
understands.
generated, right? Yeah, like that's the thing is it's to make you think about, hey, there are some assumptions that you're making that might not be true, but functionally you're experiencing kind of the same effect.
That's right.
Lots of observers and lots of linguists feel the need to really avoid any kind of anthropomorphizing language when they're talking about large language models. Like, you wouldn't say, oh, it says this, or it thinks this, or it told me this. In fact, even just saying, what do you, large language model, think about thing? Do you feel the need to avoid this kind of language? Is it useful? Should we be really trying to do that? Or is it not a big deal?
Well, I think people people get a bit over precious about this, because obviously like expressions of like kind of beliefs and preferences they're just a part of our kind of like natural way of expressing ourselves, right? It's hard to answer questions, even if they're factual questions, without somehow slipping in the idea that, if you want to express certainty, for example, certainty is a inherently psychological property, right? So it's hard not to use psychological language to express that. I do think that there are cases where, kind of like the model should like not mislead the user. And, kind of let me put that in a stronger way. I think that it should always be possible for the user of an AI system to know that they are talking to an AI system if they so wish. Right. So that should be like, and you can think of lots of use cases. That's because if you don't have that safeguard, then you can use AI systems for fraud. You can create situations where particularly people who may be vulnerable, perhaps children or those who are at risk for mental health issues, using the model might become kind of like misled or deluded by, kind of the model's claims to have sentience or to have emotions and so on. So I think that it should be possible to verify, and there should be safeguards in place. But, at the same time, I'm pretty relaxed about like us just using language in the way that we use it with other people. Sorry, not other people.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's very seductive, isn't it?
Well.
But some of that is just the way we use language. Like, my friend Mark Ellison pointed out that when computers first arrived, people said, don't use the term calculate. Calculate is a thing that humans do. And now we just go ahead and
Absolutely.
use it anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a difference between like using the second person pronoun you to like query an LLM versus being like, what do you dream about? Like, those are different things.
I completely agree. And most models
Okay.
will refuse. Like, if you just ask them directly, if you query them about their like inner subjectivity, they will, for the most part, they will refuse, right? At least most proprietary frontier models.
One thing that I think people like to do is they say, well, they're not thinking, they're simply predicting the next token. They're simply doing this thing, which seems maybe a little bit reductive to some people. There may be more going on than that. but maybe if they seem stupid to us, then they'll be less threatening, and we don't like feeling threatened.
Yeah. I mean, look, the sociological reasons to why people are so prone to denigrate this technology are like incredibly interesting, and I'm sure they have to do with lots of forces. They have to do with political ideas, like these models are made by big tech. Some people think that big tech is evil, so the models by extension must be evil. There's also kind of like, obviously the models are threatening. The people who are most prone to denigrate them are typically people in the academic social sciences. That's because they're the people that are most easily replaceable with the models. So it's not surprising, that they're so anti them. Like, just as blue collar workers are also very anti globalization, like it totally makes sense. People are. So, kind of there's lots of reasons why you want to dismiss them. I think, as a neuroscientist, the interesting question is like, to what extent is intelligence per se merely a product of like predicting held out samples from your input distribution? And this is a kind of like very interesting theoretical question across the cognitive sciences and neurosciences, and of course into philosophy, ML, everything else. I think what LLMs have taught us is that you can get much, 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 much further by just building a generative model of the world than we imagined. Like I certainly never thought that you would be able to get as far as we have got. But it's also true that, the difference between frontier models today with their kind of like really quite stylized inductive biases and the early just like, straight out of the box transformer networks, the capability differences between those, they help us understand why it's not enough just to have a generative model, right? You do actually need, and in a way that like, I think there's also a deeper point here about like the way that we conceptualize intelligence. Like, of course, we like to think of intelligence as this thing that is just, it's sort of like energy or something, right? It's like this magical force that if you have lots of it, then you have, you can do lots of stuff. But intelligence isn't like that. Intelligence is a social construct, right? Intelligence was invented by psychologists in the early 20th century in order to like decide who gets into school and who gets through immigration. All right, that's what it is. And there's a set of abilities which like are valued over some others. They tend to be the sorts of abilities that Western academic psychologists are very good at. Surprise, surprise. And so like, of course, like that normative element is like really, really important. And normativity, the normative element of what it means to be intelligent, you can only get that from feedback from other people, right? Whether that's a reinforcement or social learning. And so naturally, the advanced models today, they are steered into what they are by social learning of various sorts, right?
You mentioned in the book 3 distinct camps of people: the accelerationists, who were really enthusiastic about this tech and they wanted to move forward. There are who I'll call the anti-hypers, and they're just convinced that it's all a con and it's a house of cards. And then there's the existential riskers, or X-risk, who think that this tech really is actually powerful, but that means we need to agree on regulations. And I guess maybe I should say I tend to be an existential risker myself, but I can certainly put feet into different camps. Caitlin, are you feeling any of these views?
I mean, yeah, I would say the same, right? I am one of those people who's like, well, the biggest AI kind of products are created by tech companies, which I know to be evil. And I do not think that Mark Zuckerberg should be trusted as far as you could throw him, and Elon Musk doubly so. And like, I do feel like, as a proper, lefty person, like, yeah, I'm gonna say let's regulate the hell out of these things. Yeah. Like I want to see consumer protections. I want to see labor protections. I want to see environmental protections before I can feel like totally excited.
Yeah. I think that AI safety, since I wrote the book, actually has diversified a lot. I think there's a broad church and there are many opinions. Yeah, it's interesting that actually the type of people who argue for regulation and the type of people who are concerned about existential risks have actually diverged to some extent. So people who are truly concerned about existential risks, Yeah, I mean, they either have a sort of sense of inevitability or think that you should just pause development altogether, or they want to work on technical solutions. There's a lot of work on technical solutions. So it is interesting, and it's definitely true that thinking about regulation, really pro the idea that we should regulate to make AI safer for consumers. I also completely agree with the idea that we should think about the externalities of AI, particularly the environmental externalities. Let me push back in two minor ways. So one is like, there is always a story about large corporations kind of like riding roughshod over kind of like the needs of individuals, communities in search of their bottom line. But I think actually if you sort of stack up the world's corporations and look at how evil they are, like actually like tech kind of really, 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 really isn't the worst, right? If you look at these artifacts, the artifacts that they have produced, they didn't have to be like that. Like actually the artifacts, like it's quite astonishing that these artifacts will refuse requests to engage in kind of like criminal activity. They are for the most part like they cleave pretty clearly to like, what you would describe as like expert or mainstream views within each country. Of course there's maybe challenges to that too, depending on which country you're talking about. They also, all of these companies do have safety teams and they take safety reasonably seriously. And the product of that is that most of the models are sort of like broadly like liberal and progressive in their outputs. And like, not all of them, of course, but most of them. And I think like, I'm making a relative point, not an absolute point here. Kind of, if you think of the way that other large corporations, you think about the financial world, think about big pharma, big food, you think about oil and gas, the way that tech companies comport themselves is not actually all that terrible by comparison, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I would say compared to other corporations, that's a very fair point. On an absolute level, I still would like to see them reined in, right? We've had some problem with AI-enabled surveillance, for example, like, flock cameras and things like that, where people are not comfortable with that and people don't feel like they were consulted in terms of implementing those kind of technologies in their cities. Where, it would have been nice to see. And it's not that I want like CEOs to become nicer, because I don't think that's right. I think that's not their job. But I would like to see governments become toothier, maybe.
Yeah, I think there is, just to give you a contrary view, I think there is a real question about whether we should be more worried about like large private sector corporations making AI or more worried about states wielding AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a very, very serious question. And I think ultimately, and we see shadows of this already, right, all over the world. But it is the case that the state is generally more powerful than its corporations and not necessarily kind of more well-meaning.
Right. I mean, I brought up Flock, for example, and the whole reason it exists is because it's contracting with police, right? It's like it is the state that's creating the demand for those kinds of incursions into our personal liberties. I say on my soapbox, sorry guys. But yeah, absolutely. Like it's not just about reining in the corporations. It's about like the people putting in structures that rein in the state from using them against us.
Yeah. The way I think about this, I think in general, is that we have hard trade-offs to make about privacy and security. So at the moment, we've lived through an era in which people were broadly, pretty happy to give up large chunks of their privacy in order to get free stuff, and like that kind of bargain, kind of like most people were broadly happy with. There were certainly like kind of certainly complaints from some quarters about like how that privacy is given up and how it rubs off on other people who maybe haven't consented. I think that's very legitimate. But we're going to enter an era as the technology, we see this with the cyber capabilities of these models, right? As these models become more and more powerful, in order to keep ourselves secure, I think it is very likely that we will have to give up more of our privacy, because it will become necessary, for example, to have authentication and verification measures just because we don't know, because these models are very powerful and they're out there on digital platforms that we all use. I think it's very hard. There are hard choices to be made in the future. Like, I don't want to live in a world where whenever you go on the internet, you have to show your passport. But like,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, in that case, we do happen to have a magic wand on Because Language, and you get to wield the magic wand of policy. I'd like to know what kinds of things you'd like to see. I was thinking small. I was thinking no sloppelgangers. You don't get to impersonate people. Even, but then, what about dead grandparents? Gross, but maybe not legally actionable.
Right. Like, do you
But-
want to stop the guy next door from talking to his AI grandma? I don't want to talk to my AI grandma about like.
Yeah, no, but that's just one idea. Do you think that we should have funding for constant red teaming so that we can make sure that we catch problems before they happen? Do we just stop development? What are you going to do with this magic wand, Chris?
Yeah, well, as a government employee, I'm actually not allowed to comment on public policy in relation to AI. But I can tell you some things that are not directly policy recommendations that I do think. One thing is that, kind of like in general, governments aren't in the business of like regulating frivolity, right? So even if it's kind of icky to have an AI girlfriend, or to for that product to exist, I think it's kind of icky. It's not really the job of like state governments to say, kind of like what, whether that's allowable or not in law. Instead, what the governments do and what they have done in the UK, for example, is to pass legislation concerning like child sexual abuse material, non-consensual intimate imagery, and I think kind of like very sensibly, tried to bring the legislation up to date to deal with those criminal uses. Let me answer your question more broadly by not talking about public policy, but by talking about things that companies can do. I think this is actually kind of like not widely known, but broadly non-controversial. I think that a lot of the problems that we see right now, like not thinking necessarily about the future, but a lot of the problems that we see right now with AI could be fixed relatively straightforwardly through a series of pretty non-controversial agreements between the major proprietary providers of frontier AI over like the usual suspects. Like clearly we need psychological safety frameworks for the models, right? So we need agreements over how the models should respond, for example, when the user is clearly in crisis, like experiencing suicidal ideation or psychosis, like just having frameworks that are kind of that deal with that and that can be evaluated against. We need frameworks for thinking about content provenance and watermarking. I mean, this is kind of like, reasonably uncontroversial. There exist frameworks like C2PA for thinking about, kind of like universal standards for metadata so that you can like basically work out where an image came from. Like maybe everyone should sign up to that. That would be great. Things like, as systems become more agentic, we need agreements over like what are reasonable deployment cases, like, as systems are deployed on the internet, we probably need protocols for things like MCP, model context protocol, protocols for things like verification, so that we can control access, like which models go on which websites and how is that controlled, licensing, other forms of AI infrastructure. We need policies whereby models will disclose that they're a model, things like that. But these I don't even know if these are things which are best. These are not necessarily things that government should step in and do. Like I think these are just sort of sensible design choices. And I think a lot of people in the companies also think that these are sensible design choices, but like, they just haven't, for whatever reason, got round to implementing them. And I think maybe it is in part because there's a sort of like there's a feeling that there's a sort of race to the death, and like kind of maybe that by imposing these measures they lose some competitive advantage,
Right.
perhaps.
Well, and it does require a lot of like inter-company cooperation, right? Like they would have to coordinate with each other, which is very tough when they're in litigation against each other.
Well, I
For
mean,
example.
yeah, I mean, to some extent, but I think the companies also have, like, I mean, clearly there are specific cases, but there's also, I think, there are bodies that broker agreement, Frontier Model Forum, for example, Partnership for AI. Like, there's a lot of communication between the companies. There's a lot of flux, right? Like, kind of the same researchers. I know several researchers who've been at DeepMind, Anthropic, and OpenAI because, they go from one to the other.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
in the end, I think there is a lot of opportunity to make deals. And I think if these things, I think you could solve a lot of problems if you did these relatively simple things.
I tend to want to work at it from an educational standpoint, like helping people to have skepticism about models, to realize that somebody made a decision about what the model was allowed to say or wasn't allowed to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd
No,
love to see a
absolutely.
good curriculum developed for kind of teaching students how to evaluate the output and how to decide what to input,
That's my job.
100%. Digital literacy training is like so important, not just for AI, but for everything. And I think in many countries, it's kind of lagged behind, kind of where the tech has got to. Right?
Now, I want to ask some questions in the time we have left about models themselves and how they're improving. The hallucination problem is, of course, a massive problem. We would like them to give factual answers, although humans also don't always give factual answers. And you mentioned in the book, determining what a true answer is not always straightforward for certain kinds of questions. What's the way forward with the hallucination problem? I understand that the reasoning or chain of thought processes are big now. You mentioned others. What else is out there?
Yeah. I mean, I think your experience of the models, if it's anything like mine, is probably that the models, they're a lot more accurate now than they used to be. So certainly remember when we first had ChatGPT, GPT 3.5, very occasionally it would say a lot of nonsense. You do still have cases where the models say things that are kind of factually incorrect. I mean, of course, remember that a lot of the models now get their information directly from the internet, right? So they use tools to search the internet and pretty good at working out whether they know the answer or whether they need to search for it. And sometimes they'll search for sources that provide incorrect information and they'll serve you that incorrect information. So for me, the question is not like, how do we get rid of all hallucinations? I don't think that's a realistic goal. The question is, in a world in which most people get their information from AI, are they net better informed or worse informed in the world we live in today, or the world we lived in pre-2022? We tried to do some research to answer this question. So a couple of years ago, we ran a study in which we invited people to research topics, like topics relating to like current affairs, news and current affairs. We asked them to research those topics either with a chatbot or using a search engine. And before and after, we asked them questions, and some of those to rate their agreement. And some were misinformation questions, and some were true information questions. And the results, in hindsight, are not very surprising. So if you use a chatbot to answer these questions, to research a bunch of stuff, your knowledge of news and current affairs actually grows quite significantly for those topics that you've researched, not for topics that you haven't researched. So it's clearly related to the research that you've done. And it does so exactly as much, no more and no less, than if you use a search engine. So, and this was kind of like, we did this research actually before AI overviews was so ubiquitous. So, kind of my guess is that we probably have, at worst, a kind of like preservation of the status quo for knowledge seeking. So, don't get me wrong, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm worried about with AI. Like, I do think there's tremendous opportunity for like all sorts of adversarial misuse, but I'm not particularly worried about the degradation of the ecosystem, information ecosystem. I think that probably compared to the status quo, they're probably either a net positive or at least no change, I guess.
Wow, I'm surprised by that because you do mention in the book that they can be very persuasive. And we've seen research, we've covered research on the show where experimenters have injected prompts into queries from an experimental subject where they've said, answer this question like you're a far right conservative or a far left progressive. And people do tend to get bent in the direction that the model leads them. on
Yeah.
topics that they didn't know anything about before. So I guess I am concerned about models being persuasive, but I guess I'm concerned about people being persuasive as well. Maybe these models will ruin the world, but only in ways that humans have already been ruining the world
Right.
for hundreds
Well,
of
like,
years.
yeah, I can absolutely see like my grandma typing into her chatbot, like, tell me what happened in Honduras last week and don't give me any of that woke bullshit, sorry about the cursing, but, and like now the LLM knows what she wants from it, right? But she also, 5 years ago would have just been watching Newsmax or whatever. So it's not like it's better or worse.
Yeah. I would distinguish, I mean, what I said about the information ecosystem, I was imagining the use case in which, you have the proprietary model, you have the latest version, and you go and search for information, and maybe you're searching for information that you would otherwise have sought on social media or via a search engine, right? So that use case, I'm like broadly relaxed about. We've done in my research group, we've done some of the kind of like the latest research into AI persuasion, and I can tell you that the models are very, very persuasive. In fact, they are more persuasive, not just than the average person. They are more persuasive than people who are persuasive for a living. And this worries me. So when I said I'm worried about various forms of adversarial misuse, this is exactly what I mean.
One.
So that allows them to be used or misused by, whether it's nation state, threat actors, or like domestic, terrorists and violent extremists or whatever. There are manifold opportunities for the AI to be used in that way. And we don't know how those how that will play out in the real world, because of course in the real world, the real challenge with influence is not actually persuading someone once you have their attention. Once you have your attention, it's quite easy to persuade someone. The hard thing is getting their attention in the first place. How that plays out depends on the form factor. It depends on how AI is integrated into like platforms and so on. But I'm very concerned about the persuasive, manipulative, coercive, and deceptive influences of AI in the hands of the wrong people.
I can see two vectors for that. One is that there's a government who wants to pump out disinformation to the low information voters from a different country. No names, so that you can influence their elections or that. Or, and I'm thinking of the way that Elon Musk has gamed Grok so that it now outputs more conservative content.
I mean, it keeps ungaming itself, though, to be fair. Like, he's really bad at it.
Yeah, what's up with that? Despite their best efforts, it seems to be reverting to an even keel.
Because he'll brute force a slant on it, and then it's just, I think, too big or something. Like, it's just like, yeah, no, I know yesterday I told you that I thought that Elon Musk could beat a silverback gorilla in hand-to-hand combat, but today I realize that that's kind of silly.
Turns out the post-training is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. XAI are not the world's best company at post-training, which is, we've seen many, many examples of this, not just from XAI, right? We've seen many examples of like, kind of like companies being embarrassed by failures that are clearly like failures in their post-training pipelines.
The book it's a linguistics intro class. It's a really good view of the tech universe as we have it. And it's also a clarion call to things we should watch out for. What do you hope that people will do as a result of reading the book?
Well, I mean, I wrote the book so that people would gain a broader understanding of the models and how they work. And I think, perhaps people are better informed now, but certainly when I was writing the book and when it first came out, this thing just landed in people's laps and people really didn't know, like, is this like a person or is this like, how is this different from a person? What should I be worried about? And so, kind of like, I really wanted to write a book that brought all of those things together. It's almost 2 years since I sort of put pen to paper on the book, and more than that, actually. And, things have changed a lot. The book, I make three sort of quasi predictions, or highlight three areas of concern for like future research into AI and where its impacts will be most felt. One is I talk about the ways in which models will become more personalized to the user. That hasn't really happened yet. It's happened a little bit, and clearly in extreme cases it can happen kind of in weird ways, but like that hasn't really come to pass, but I do believe it still might.
In other words, it's tailoring itself to you and your preferences, that becoming
Exactly.
personal in that way? Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still live in a world in which language models they're a reasonably centralizing force for our information, right? If you think of social media as like a fragmenting force, right? It's something in which, you only see your own particular ecosystem. The models kind of do the opposite. They sort of centralize the information still. The second thing I talk about is agentic systems, like systems that can do not just say. And of course, that's coming to pass as we speak. The thing that keeps me awake at night is like if you think about the rapid uptake of ChatGPT, 100 million users in 8 weeks. Imagine you had something like OpenClaw as a system that kind of allows you to use a language model to like control your operating system, navigate the internet, do stuff online, and so on. Imagine you had 100 million users of OpenClaw in 8 weeks. The internet would get a very funky place very fast. That worries me a lot. And then finally, and relatedly, I talk in the final chapter about multi-agent systems. And this is like the thing that I'm most concerned about. I actually think that kind of like the superlative intelligence of a single system is a little bit of a red herring. The thing that I'm much more worried about is that we all have powerful systems, maybe no more powerful than the ones today, but they are connected together. And I have very specific reasons for being worried about that. But broadly, it's because, if you take humans or biological systems as a model, we're not actually that effective on our own, right? I would be kind of lost if the other 8 billion people on the planet vanished, right? But collectively, we can do a lot. And I think exactly the same is true with the models. It's about like how they share information and the potential for them to evolve kind of like, ways of interacting that exclude humans. I think we should be deeply concerned about. That's my number one take home.
The book is These Strange New Minds, How AI Learned to Talk and What It Means. It's available from Viking, an imprint of Penguin Random House. We've been talking to the author, Dr. Christopher Summerfield. Chris, thanks so much for coming and hanging out and having a chat with us.
Oh, it's so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for great questions. Really nice to meet you both.
I think after that, we need to check in with the words of the week.
Has anyone seen Backrooms?
I haven't yet.
No, and I'm going to.
So here's where Hedvig and I think are quite different because we are very similar in many ways, and then we're also very, very different in a couple of key ways.
Can I make a guess?
Yeah.
When I first heard that there was a movie coming out called Backrooms, I raised my eyebrows a little bit and I thought, that sounds kinky. What are they doing? Turns out it's a different type of Backrooms.
No, so
Darn.
I do not or did not want to see this on kind of grouchy old guy grounds. Like I associated this very much with like shitty teenage brain rot shit, essentially, right? Like this is, when I first heard that they were making a Backrooms movie, I was familiar with the progenitor source material of the YouTube videos made by a really young guy, actually a very talented guy. I still give him credit. Like the videos that he made were very good.
He's directing it, right?
Yes, he is the youngest person ever to have directed a major motion picture, I believe. He is also the youngest person ever to have directed a major, like a motion picture to have grossed over a certain amount, like many, many hundreds of millions of dollars. But so I was very much like, oh man, I don't want to see some like Johnny come lately meme shit at the cinema. Like I'm not interested. It's not my speed. It's not my vibe. It also doesn't help that like horror as a genre is not one I fuck with generally anyway. So for all those reasons, I was like, boo. And then some people whose taste I respect were like, I reckon you should check out the Backrooms. And I'm like, oh, biscuits.
Dang it.
I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I like these types of like quirky. So for those who don't know, Backrooms is a sort of horror-ish movie sprung out of various sort of, what do we call it? Copy pasta, I guess. Maybe online.
Creepypasta.
Creepypasta. There we go.
And so a word is coming to the forefront, and that is liminal.
Yeah. It's been around for a while now in internet culture, this idea of what people like to call liminal spaces. So these are like in-between spaces that have a sort of eerie energy. Think about maybe when you're at an airport and you're walking in a terminal, there are not a lot of people, and you round a corner and there's this huge room, very nondescript, and there's no one there. And all it is a space that you go through to get somewhere else. And you get this sort of eerie, surrealist feeling sometimes. There's a very popular, I think it's a Tumblr account, liminal spaces, where people put up photographs that evoke this sort of eerie void feeling. Like, I don't know how to describe it really. It's very, yeah.
Well, that's what the word liminal means. It means of or pertaining to a threshold, and you're on your way to somewhere else. But now everywhere is this kind of space, and it creates kind of a strange, uneasy feeling, like the time that I went in a hospital and I walked around to a corridor that was darkened and the air conditioning was making an eerie noise.
So I would put forward that this sort of recent or semi-recent affection for or interest in sort of liminal spaces, I think draws from the tradition of weird fiction, which is a genre of literature. So it's not just like literature that happens to be unusual. Weird fiction describes a very particular kind of usually speculative or science fiction or fantasy, which deals with matters and contexts and subtexts that are very liminal, right? So like stuff is very rarely explicit in weird fiction texts, and there's often a lack of explanation over like the mechanics of strange things that are happening and that sort of stuff. So if anyone's watched the movie Annihilation, which is based on a book called Annihilation is probably one of the most well-known examples that I could point to for like weird fiction. And if you've watched that movie or read that book, you'll get a very clear picture of what I'm talking about. Like stuff is really weird, but in ways that you don't necessarily just have explained to you. And liminal spaces, I think, are evocative of that. There's a weirdness to things that you can't quite put your finger on, but it's there. Even though there's nothing explicitly weird necessarily happening in that moment or that photo or in that airport lounge or whatever, there's just strange vibes.
It's a little bit similar to Uncanny Valley. So Uncanny
Yes.
Valley is like when you see like a robot that like, if a robot really doesn't look like a human, you're like, okay, this is a little gobbledygook is running around. If it
Yeah.
looks almost like a human, that's worse than if it doesn't look like a human at all. And people call this the Uncanny Valley effect, because you could imagine a plot whereby you have like likeness to a human on the x-axis and creepiness on the y-axis. And it like you like something more and more the more it becomes a human, but when it gets like very close but not fully, you like it a lot less because it's more unsettling. It's like it's a body snatcher behind the eyes of a person. And it's similar to liminal spaces, I think.
Well, I think, yeah, you're essentially describing another vector of liminality, right? So the most recent preoccupation with liminality is almost exclusively around built environments, right? So the Backrooms is essentially set in this sort of never-ending series of abandoned office architecture where there's like some carpeting and the odd desk, but there's nothing actually else. It's not a warehouse though. It's not like all old and decrepit. It looks like it was maybe used up until 5 or 6 years ago, but then hasn't been used since. And other liminal spaces that you might see, so like a shopping mall at night, but with some of the stores still lit up and these sorts of things. So that's all related to like built environment, but you're talking about almost like perceptive liminality. Like we're approaching the border or the boundary of the real, but we're not there yet, and we know we're not there yet, and so.
I was thinking
Yeah.
that maybe liminal spaces are unsettling because it's like, this place is empty. Why is it empty? Where are all the people? Did something happen to them? Can I leave? Am I in danger? Which is, by the way,
That's
that question,
part of
I
it.
don't know if I'm in danger or not. That's the essence of creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like if you've ever seen like a classic, more like straight up horror movie, like A House of Wax or something, where like there is a guy, he's trying to kill you. You know that he's a guy who's trying to kill you. But when you're in these situations, you're like, is this safe or not? Maybe it's safe. Maybe it's dangerous. I don't know. And that's kind of like in a way more frightening as an audience, I think, than there's a guy literally running around trying to kill you.
I will say this as well. I don't know that I agree that liminality inherently has a valence of creepiness necessarily. I think there are aspects of liminality that can be creepy. And I think our modern or our sort of like the flavor of the month of liminal spaces, as is the back room, manifests very creepily. But other liminal spaces that I engage in, I do not at all experience a creepy vibe. I just experience a different vibe, right? So when I walk, so like we can talk about I live in the CBD here in Perth, and on various times and places I've had occasion to be like walking through the CBD at like 2 or 3 a.m. And it's a very liminal space, right? It's different, it's unusual, but it's not creepy, it's not scary. I actually find some aspects of liminality deeply like endearing and charming in a strange way. So I don't think liminality, for me anyway, personally, is not inherently creepy, but you can absolutely do creepy shit with liminality, no question.
I feel that too. Like there was a video game, I think it was called Dead Mall or something like that, and I just kind of liked the settings. I thought they were kind of neat. I don't know.
It is entirely possible, however. Daniel and I are just fucked up human beings.
We're broken in the same way, and that's what I love about you. Let's go on to the next one, suggested by Elias on our Discord, Pink Slime Journalism. Elias has pointed us to an article on the ABC. What is pink slime journalism, and has it infiltrated Australian media? What's pink slime, first of all? Has anyone heard this term? I hadn't.
I have, I think. If I am correct, pink slime refers to the industrial food product which chicken nuggets are made out of. It is
and various
other things. It is a amalgam of various sort of waste and byproducts and chicken flesh of the chicken industry.
Can be beef too.
And has been sort of held up by the likes of Jamie Oliver, sort of like pearl-clutchingly sort of espousing why contemporary food systems are so fucked up, essentially. Like, look at this awful, disgusting industrial thing that is actually being turned into food. I actually maybe sort of kind of low-key wonder, maybe pink slime's actually, if we're eating meat as a society, kind of a good thing, because we're like using all of the parts of the animal and we're not just throwing a whole bunch of shit out. And so the chicken nuggets, which I don't know if anyone's had a chicken nugget recently. Pink slime, when you deep fry it, really fucking tasty. But like for a long time, pink slime has been this thing of like and it's gross to look at. Like, make no mistake, when you watch the all of the bits going into the big machine and then the pink slime coming out, it's like it's not a pleasant look. So therefore, I'm guessing pink slime journalism is some sort of maybe AI sloppy thing where we're just churn and burning as much fucking content as possible, getting it out there, getting it into eyeballs, seeing what clicks, following that stuff up, just real shitty, yucky stuff.
You're correct there, but the ABC story has a little extra angle, and that is that it's especially prevalent in small-town Australian community news.
No!
Let me explain this one. So, legitimate print media resources have been hit hard by online news. Social media sites have been making them disappear. And then into this void, AI fake newspapers have rushed in. There's an article in ABC News by Madigan Landry. Seems that the ABC's been tracking them. People are slapping up AI websites masquerading as small-town news websites, but they have fake images, including crime scenes, and Gen AI articles. Basically, it's news slop.
I hate this very much.
It's really damaging for small communities, especially.
One thing I don't understand about some of this type of AI slop generation is like, you'll see this on like videos online where someone will be like, I will teach you how to make AI lo-fi and earn lots of money. And I'm like, we're in this humanity together. But sometimes I feel like some people are like, no, we're not really in this together. I am just going to look out for number one, and it doesn't really matter what effects my actions have, and I will just do this because it makes me personally money. And there's a part of me that understands that, because I'm very privileged in having like a job and a lot of resources, and like maybe if I wasn't in that position, I wouldn't feel that way. But sometimes when I see the thing that people, when they try and sell courses on, like, you can also make probably like a local newspaper in 5 minutes. How great is that? I'm like, how do you hear that? And then
and be like, that's a good thing. The world needs that.
Yeah.
The other thing, I don't want to romanticize local newspapers too much, but there is At their best, local news outlets, and when we say local, I'm talking like regional, sort of like places that are very much unserved by major news publications. Local news at that level, regional news, rural news, if you will, can actually at its best be really charming and really quite lovely. It's like a community just like getting down on its own ness, and like local papers is where you'll find like a really great story about fucking Charlie, the 102-year-old who still runs the like little 1/4 model fucking steam engine for the kids every Friday down at like the local heritage museum. That's where you get that news, and boy howdy, could we use a bit more of that in our day-to-day life, right?
So pink slime journalism, basically news slop. I wish we would call it news slop. I don't know if we need pink slime journalism. This one was suggested by Diego. The term is waste colonialism. I think we can all kind of guess what this one's going to be about. There's a lot of garbage and a lot of stuff that's intended for recycling that we ship overseas to countries in the global south, and then it just gets burned, causes pollution, sometimes catches fire all by itself, and it's not good.
Western nations, wealthy nations, are exporting a tremendous amount of their waste to the developing world. And a huge part of the reason for that is because you, me, Hedvig, everyone else, thinks that a lot more things are recyclable than actually are in our current global recycling reality.
There are also things that are recyclable, but that take so much effort to recycle that they aren't recycled.
Yeah.
Right.
So here in Australia, the recycling is almost universally codified around what we call the yellow bin. All of our bins where we put recycling have a yellow top, like a big flappy top. There are only 5 things that can go into the yellow bin. That's it. There are 5 items, broadly speaking, of waste that can go into a yellow bin and actually meaningfully get recycled. Everything else either gets diverted to landfill, sent to Fiji to be burned, or like some other place like that, or gets downcycled, which is only ever so barely one step above landfill, because it means it gets one more very shitty use and then it almost certainly ends up in landfill. Yeah, the reality is that our recycling systems need a lot of work and a lot of sort of development and refinement. And if we want to do recycling well, we need to be like Germany and Japan. We need to be really, really, really well behaved, diligent human beings who sort our waste and make sure it is going where it needs to go and it is clean. Like if you put a soup tin in the fucking recycling and it has even a small amount of organic material on it, that shit goes to landfill.
Let me tell you about some of my neighbors in Germany and what they put in our recycling bins. No, actually, they're mainly pretty good. They're actually pretty good. But it is like a recurrent, because it does introduce friction in apartment buildings when you're like, well, at one point there was dirty diapers in the plastic recycling. And I was like, I am going to take that bag of dirty diapers out, because that does seem exceptionally not correct.
Yeah, that's like, even for me, a non-German, I say, no, ma'am.
Yeah.
There is some good news. The world is reporting that Fiji has decided not to build an incinerator to import and burn that waste.
Yes.
The Fijian ambassador to the UN said that Fiji does not want to become the ashtray of the Pacific.
Oh, good language. Love that. Evocative.
Also, Fiji is not a big place. I am surprised. Australia's not saying we should fill the Australian desert with waste, but it is obscene to me that a huge country with a larger population and larger area would send their waste to such a small island nation.
Definitely. Thanks, Diego. Let's fire through these next ones. Hot washing. Got a guess? It was our word of the year a couple of years ago, the combining form washing.
Yeah, so
Now we have a new one.
We're doing something. Oh, I've got it.
Hot people, attractive people.
Yeah.
You're right. This one comes from Maurice Kreisman on Blue Sky, who wrote an article, Hollywood needs to stop hot washing literary adaptations.
Yeah.
And it's about Wuthering Heights. I didn't see the movie. I did see the trailer. I have no beef with Margot Robbie, the actor who played Kathy, but I'm going to tell you something. Watching the trailer, I found her presence in the movie distracting.
Too hot. Is that what you're saying?
Oh,
I don't know why. Maybe it was the hot
but that's
washing.
a different.
I just thought
That's a different
this is not believable.
issue. Well, sometimes movie creators will take someone who's very attractive and put them in a movie and then also curl their hair and give them flawless makeup. And that I think is dumb because that just doesn't work. But you can do like The Hours with Nicole Kidman and just dress someone normally and put not glamorous makeup. I think Margot Robbie could look less glamorously hot if she was dressed and costumized and make up in a more normie way, right? Am I wrong?
Just the sense I got watching the trailer. And that's just my, perhaps that's me. Going on, this was suggested by Allison via email. Eppy. Allison says, hi, because language, long-time listener, first-time emailer, I came across a new, to me, term in a recommended Instagram reel, eppy, referring to something sketchy and suspiciously Epstein-like or Epstein-adjacent.
Oh, okay.
Someone says in the documentary, in Unexpected, smells a bit eppy to me. One to watch out for? Gross, but maybe needed.
There you go. Okay.
Thanks, Allison. 3 from Liz. Here we go. Shoulder surfing, hovering behind someone to watch them entering their PIN number or password. I kind of like that image.
Oh, I thought it was going to be like when you're on the flight and you watch what people do.
Oh, that's fun. I like that a lot more, actually.
I do like that one. Like I'm gonna watch their movie. That looks better than my movie. Newsjacking, making use of a tenuous link to a trending news story to get eyeballs on your own content, sort of piggybacking on the news.
Yep.
That's pretty normal. Yeah.
Hedvig, I think I've heard you use this one. Bio break.
Oh, I don't remember using it. Bio break.
Yeah, taking a quick break to run to the loo, get a snack, do some human body stuff.
Oh, okay. I like that.
I have never used it, but I like it. Yeah.
Bio break.
I mean, can't we just use break?
Maybe. Liz's definition, a quick break between or during meetings to go to the loo, get a drink or grab a snack, or all three if you're fast.
Without TMI, I can recommend trying to drink while peeing. It's quite fun.
Doing what?
It's fun. You feel like a tube.
No.
That's recycling.
I don't want that at all.
You should
See
try
if we can
it.
get a constant cycle.
Okay. All right. I will. Okay.
Tell us how it goes. And then finally, Wario. Credit to Spara on Blue Sky. There's a horrible right-wing website called The Daily Wire, and the AV Club reports Mike, failed Jeopardy host Richards, named CEO of The Daily Wire. Mike Richards, whose tenure as Alex Trebek's replacement for the quiz show Jeopardy, lasted for literally one day back in 2021. He's just been promoted from being The Daily Wire's president to its CEO. Well, that's his life now. But Spara on Blue Sky tagged Jeopardy champ, host, and generally cool guy Ken Jennings. Says, Ken Jennings, you have a Wario.
That's very good. We should probably explain to non-gamer people who Wario is.
Would you please?
In the Nintendo world, there is Super Mario Brothers, Mario and Luigi. One time, I think it was for the Wii Sports game, they wanted them to play doubles tennis, and they needed to have 2 more people. And they created the evil versions of Mario, Wario, and Luigi, Waluigi. At least that's how Waluigi came about, so that they could play doubles tennis.
Mm-hmm. It's so much better than Nemesis because it's cuter, funnier, and a little bit different. Like Spara says, in this specific case, it refers to an antagonist who is a dark reflection of the hero. To be a Wario is to be characterized by your similarities to the protagonist rather than the opposite. So it's much more specific than a nemesis.
I gotta say it. I'm sorry. I've got to.
What?
So first of all, Wario predates Wii Sports by like a long time, by like 15 years.
Okay.
He's been around in the Mario games for...
But that's origin of Waluigi, right?
I couldn't tell you about Waluigi. That one I would have to fact check. But it's important, I think, to note that Wario is, like Daniel was saying, he's not only just a dark reflection. He was originally a Mario nemesis or an antagonist. But it's really important to note that Wario, as he exists in the minds of a lot of, at least people familiar with gaming, is is like an agent of chaos, right? It's not just that he's like the baddie. He is a entity who is in the world to explicitly cause as much dysfunction, mayhem, and general societal like. So when you play the various Mario Party games and the Wario games and stuff, Wario exists to fuck your shit up exclusively, right? Not just as like the boss that you have to fight, but like he will meta inject himself into things and be like, you can't do that now, and you're just like, oh, fuck off, Wario. It's just that's. So I think that valence is important to acknowledge because it makes the burn that Spara did all the better.
Also, I like the existence of a combining form, w or wa. So, liminal, pink slime journalism, waste colonialism, hot washing, eppy, shoulder surfing, newsjacking, biobreak, and wario are words of the week. Big thanks to our guest, Christopher Summerfield, our co-host, Caitlin Green, everyone who gave us news, words, and related or nots. Thanks to Speech Docs for transcribing all the words, and you great patrons.
Because language lovers, also known as bloggers, no, that's terrible. Blovers. There we go.
Bloviators.
Lovely.
Yeah, blovers.
No, blovers is pretty good. I think I'm going to go with blovers. If you like the show, there's a number of things that you can do to support it so that we can keep making the show. One of the things is to follow us. We are becauselanguage.com on Blue Sky and becauselangpod just about everywhere else, including, I believe, Instagram, Facebook. I think we still have there exists a Twitter account. I don't think we use it. And I'm not going to call it X.
No, I use it. It's Facebook I don't use.
Ah, okay. Interesting. You can also send us ideas, news, and words. You can use our website, becauselanguage.com, and click on the SpeakPipe symbol and send us a little audio file. Or you can also email us at hello@becauselanguage.com. You can send us in, for example, related or not words or words of the week. And one great thing you can always do with all podcasts that you like is tell a friend in real life about it or write us a review at, for example, Podchaser, which is a great review site. Thank you very much.
You can also become a patron. You get stuff depending on the level of the patronage that you engage in. Live shows, bonus episodes, mail out, shout outs, and Discord access. The very best thing of all, because our lovely, nerdy listeners are a pretty cool group of people to hang out with online, digitally. We get your support, which helps us to keep the show running, to keep us in supplies and software, and keep regular episodes free for all. Shout out now to our patrons at the supporter level. Daniel, what unhinged fever dream have you concocted for the read of the patrons today?
Well, I wondered how I could get everybody's names in kind of a 6-digit number so that everybody has 6 digits and then I could order them.
Okay.
Right? I did this by looking at ASCII values. So the letter capital A is 065 in ASCII.
Okay.
And so I decided to take the first letter and the last letter of everybody's name because then it would be kind of unique. So, for example, if your name begins with A, capital A, and ends with A, then your number would be 065097.
Oh, because a capital and a lowercase are different ASCII assignations.
That's correct.
Okay.
And that was pretty interesting, but then I thought, no. We can make this more interesting. Now that I've assigned a 6-digit number to everybody, how quickly will I run across that number if I'm looking through the values of pi?
You are a fucked up human being, Daniel.
The digits of pi.
You are.
So here we go. Take a pen.
Look, Daniel's unbridled enthusiasm for brute forcing where people's ASCII character names fall in the position of pi just so happens to deliver him first. Wouldn't you know it? So,
yep.
In order of when people fall in pi, and I'll just sort of intermittently call out how far along in pi these people fall. So we start off with Daniel, and he is 12,164 characters along in the pi sequence. I'm assuming that's what that number means, right, Daniel? That's how far along pi you need to go before you... Okay,
exactly.
Cool.
Exactly.
So we've then got Amanita, Aisha, Sam, Ignacio, Sonic Snedgehog, Steel, Andy B, Yavad, and Amy. And then we jump into the 100,000th region. So Andy from Logophilus is 103,378 characters into pi. Tim. Joanna, Renee, Kathy, Ferrocat, John Troy, Laura, Lissa, Aldo, Larry, Lucy, Nikolai, Unleashy, our new addition. Hello, friend. Keith, Rash, Nigel, Wolfdog, Meredith, Becky, Lance, Stan, Kenny, Archer, Tony, Grammarian, Linguistic Chaos. Fiona, I would be here. Mignon, Kevin, Elias, Helen. Now we branch into the millionth position of pi. Faux Frenchie falls at 1,051,223 characters into pi. Nasrin, Zachary, Lord Mortis. Luis, Chris L, Colleen, Molly D, Martha, Sydney, Roger. Oh, and Roger, by the way, just gets us into the 2 millionth position. Amir, Christopher, Rosemary, John K, Whitney, Manu. James comes in at the 3 millionth position. Hedvig is here nearly at the very end at 3,263,234th position of pi. Diego, and right at the end, Ariaflame with a massive jump between Diego and Ariaflame. Ariaflame comes in at 6,845,674th decimal point of pi. Thank you to all of our patrons, and thank you to the Pi search page, because of course Daniel knows that such a thing exists.
I did. And I feel like being last is kind of special in its own way, don't you think?
Absolutely. Especially that last.
Our theme music is written and performed by Drew Kreplyanov, who also performs with Ryan Bino and Idiot's Bible. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time, because language.
Alrighty.
I miss Hedvig's pew.
I know. It seems like a paltry pew.
But socially constructed, rather than grounded in how women actually sound.
I have to immediately know what that is. It sounds like there's a little Frenchman with a squeeze box in her room, just being like...
Sounds like... Sounds like somebody's really celebrating.
I hope it's not like
now
a terrible
Hedvig
alarm that we're like Hedvig is now running for her life and we've just made light of it.
Well, whatever it is, she's not able to quell. That's how.
This is
and
such
now
a
she's spending
fun
an awful lot of
off-screen.
time.
Now she's strangling the man with the squeeze box.
Really
She's really just like, die, fiend.